مساء الخير. نظرا لضيق الوقت في الفترة الصباحية فإننا نستكمل تقارير رؤساء الإقاليم لمدة نصف ساعة، ثم النائب الثاني يستكمل جلسته في المساء. إذن استكمالا للوثيقة 1 والقرار 2/1، أدعو رؤساء الاتحادات الإقليمية لتقديم موجز عن تقاريرهم. أولا أدعو رئيس إقليم الاتحاد الإقليمي الأول السيد فاتني لتقديم تقريره. تفضل سيدي. لا، ممكن ننتقل إلى الإقليم الثاني ثم نرجع للإقليم الأول. تفضل دكتور أيمن غلام، تفضل.
شكرا سعادة الرئيس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد الرئيس، السادة نواب الرئيس، سعادة الأمين العام، رؤساء الاتحادات الإقليمية، رؤساء اللجان الفنية، السادة أعضاء المجلس التنفيذي، السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يشرفني أن أكون معكم اليوم لأعرض تقرير الإقليم الثاني نيابة عن اتحاد الإقليم الثاني RA2. أود أن أغتنم هذه الفرصة مجددا لأعبر عن خالص امتناني لأعضاء الإقليم الثاني على ثقتهم بتكليفي بمهمة رئاسة الإقليم وبالعمل جنبا إلى جنب مع نائب الرئيس المنتخب حديثنا الدكتور صاحب زاد خان، الممثل الدائم لباكستان، وجميع أعضاء مجموعة الإدارة وسائر أعضاء الإقليم. لا شك عندي أنه بفضل دعمكم المستمر ووحدتنا التي لطالما تميزنا بها سنواصل البناء على إنجازات من سبقونا خلال السنوات القادمة. يعد الإقليم الثاني الأضخم من حيث التعداد السكاني، إذ يضم نحو 60% من سكان العالم، ومن ثم فإنه من الأهمية أن نعمل معا بروح الوحدة لإيجاد حلول جماعية لسد الفجوات التي قد تم تحديدها في التقرير المعروض أمامكم، والتي تشمل الحاجة إلى تعزيز التنسيق بين المنظمات وتطوير الشراكات الاستراتيجية وتحسين كفاءة المراكز الإقليمية، والأهم من ذلك توفير الموارد الكافية. وانطلاقا من الحاجة إلى سد تلك الفجوات، حددت المرحلة الأولى من الدورة 18 للإقليم الثاني RA218 14 أولوية إقليمية تتماشى مع الأهداف الخمسة للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية، وتشمل هذه الأولويات تعزيز خدمات التنبؤ والإنذار على أساس الأثر، تحسين توفير المعلومات والخدمات المناخية، تعزيز قدرات الأعضاء في مجالات القياس الهيدرولوجي، تحسين الخدمات الهيدرولوجية، وتقوية مراكز القياس الرائدة التابعة للمنظمة، وتنفيذ نظام المعلومات التابع للمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد، وكذلك تعزيز الربط بين البحث العلمي والخدمات في الأرصاد الوطنية من خلال الشراكة مع المؤسسات الأكاديمية، وتطوير وتقديم دورات تدريبية تتماشى مع الأولويات الإقليمية، وزيادة استخدام وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي، وتقوية وتوسيع الشراكات الإقليمية وغيرها من المجالات. كما استعرضت المرحلة الأولى في اجتماع RA218 الأنشطة الإقليمية استنادا إلى خطة العمل للفترة من 2021 إلى 2024، وتوصلت إلى أن 70% من الأنشطة المخطط لها قد تم تنفيذها ولله الحمد. وقد تتفقون معي على أن هذا يعد إنجازا كبيرا بكل المقاييس، لا سيما بالنظر إلى التحديات العديدة التي تواجهها المنطقة، وخصوصا ما يتعلق بتوفر الموارد. وتشمل هذه الإنجازات مجالات الإنذار المبكر للجميع، وإصدار تقرير حالة المناخ في آسيا لعام 2024، والنظام العالمي المتكامل للرصد التابع للمنظمة ويغوس، وشبكة الرصد الأساسي الإقليمية ريبون، والأقمار الصناعية، والمنتدى الثالث للمناخ المعني بالقطب الثالث TPCF، وورشة العمل المشتركة بين مراكز الأرصاد الجوية المتخصصة لرابطة جنوب شرق آسيا Asian ASMC والمنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية في سنغافورة في سبتمبر 2024، وورشة العمل الختامية لمشروع البحث والتطوير في هانغ تشو التي أقيمت كذلك في عام 2024. السيد الرئيس، سعادة الأمين العام، الزملاء الأعزاء، يتضمن هذا التقرير أيضا الأنشطة المخطط تنفيذها خلال هذه الدورة، والتي تبنى على أنشطة قائمة من الفترات المالية السابقة، وكذلك الأنشطة التي حددتها الدورة الأخيرة للإقليم الثاني. وستظل مجالات التنسيق والتعاون بين الأعضاء لتحسين قدراتهم في تقديم الخدمات وسد الفجوات بين الدول المتقدمة والنامية، وتعزيز الشراكات الاستراتيجية لمواجهة القضايا الجديدة والناشئة في صلب عملنا بالإقليم. وعلى صعيد الحوكمة، أوصي بأن ينظر المجلس التنفيذي في مراجعة الترتيبات الحالية المتعلقة بالمقاعد المخصصة بالمجلس، بما في ذلك التوازن الإقليمي في سياق التقييم الخارجي لنظام الحوكمة الأوسع للمنظمة، وطرحها للنظر في المؤتمر العام 20 CG20، بما يشمل احتمال تعديل المادة 13 جيم من الاتفاقية واللائحة العامة رقم 16. وأغتنم هذه الفرصة لأعبر عن تقديري لأمانة المنظمة العالمية للأرصاد الجوية على دعمها لأنشطة الإقليم خلال الفترة المالية الماضية، وأتطلع إلى استمرار هذا الدعم في السنوات المقبلة. أشكركم جميعا على حسن استماعكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا دكتور أيمن غلام، رئيس الإقليم الثاني. الآن أنتقل إلى رئيس الإقليم اتحاد الإقليم الأول، السيد فاتني، تفضل.
Dear Dr. Abdullah Al-Mandous, the President of WMO, dear WMO Secretary General, dear members of Executive Councils, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank for an opportunity to present the WMO RA1 report for this council. This report is based upon activities in the event involving regional associations. One, since the 78th session of the Executive Council held in June 2024, it highlights the major challenges, achievements, implemented projects, as well as the update on the RA1 governance. The officers of the President, the Vice President, and the Regional Hydrological Advisor remain the same. The RA1 Management Group continues to execute its mandate as per the 2023 and the 2024 session decisions and resolutions. The composition and the responsibilities can be found on this document. The major challenges of the region are limited number of skilled personnel, training opportunities available by partners, inadequate national data exchange, poor project sustainable, and the capacity gaps. The RA1 regional strategic priorities for the intersessional period of 2024 to 2027 include enhancing observation and infrastructure development, improved weather forecasting and the early warning for all, IBF, climate in the water services, climate alert protocol, implementation, quality management system and ISO certification, and the leadership training, among others. Some key achievements concerning the RA1 constitute in the subsidiary bodies, which includes the RA1 committees on infrastructure, service, capacity development and the research, the hydrological and the water coordination panel, the tropical cyclone committee of the Southwest Indian Ocean and the gender committee are operational and continue to execute their work plan. Dear President, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, digital tools for data transmission, automated data loader system, visualization, and the CAP composer have been developed by local experts with the support of NORCAP. I am happy that the Clean Web in the CAP composer software developed in African will be tested in other WMO regions. Regarding to the implementation of AMDAR, WIGOS, GIBON, Arbon, WISE in the CAP, a total of 963 new GIBON stations have been declared, and the 1,000 new stations are added to Oscar surfaces. Many activities have been implemented with the support of educational and the training office, technical department, and the development partnership through extra budgetary projects. From early warnings for all initiative project implementation points of view, to date, 24 members in RA1 have held national consultative workshop, and the 18 members have developed national roadmaps. For Pillar 2 activities, soft cruise in the water at the earth projects are expected to support many activities. The first African early warning for all initiative multi-stakeholder forum was jointly organized by UNDRR and the WMO on 21 October 2024 in Windhoek, Namibia, alongside the 9th Africa Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. The Windhoek Declaration was approved. The 2024 State of Climate Report in Africa was released in hybrid format. From partnership and advocacy point of view, WMO Regional Office for Africa strengthened its partnership and the collaboration with the regional and the sub-regional institutions. Concerning implementation of the project, 23 projects are being implemented in the region with a portfolio of 59 million Swiss francs. Finally, I would like to request EC to recognize the uniqueness of Regional Association 1 with more least developed countries, LDCs, and the small island developing states than any other region, and request the Secretary General to pay special attention to Area 1 through the support given to the region is appreciated. Thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا السيد فاتني تيشوم رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الأول. الآن ننتقل إلى رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الثالث السيد إدوارد هوزيه مينو فيغا تقديم تقريره. تفضل.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente, señora secretaria general, a todos los miembros del Consejo Ejecutivo. Es un honor representar a la región 3 y la región mantuvo en este periodo a los 13 miembros. En una sesión virtual en noviembre del 2024 se reúne justamente la Asociación Regional 3 en 19, en donde se establece una estructura de trabajo con un grupo de gestión y 4 comités regionales, alineando la estructura a la estructura OMM, y hablamos de un comité de infraestructura, un comité de servicios, un comité de hidrología y un comité de ciencia e innovación. En los retos institucionales que vemos dentro de la región, hay una alta rotación de los representantes permanentes. Es una premisa que venimos sintiendo, y de hecho también dentro del ámbito técnico-científico hay bastante falta de personal cualificado para ir tomando posiciones. Ese es un reto importante. Dentro del ámbito económico, la inversión en infraestructura, algunos países tuvieron disminuciones dentro de la región, otros sí están haciendo esfuerzos. Y bueno, recursos humanos e infraestructura sigue siendo un inconveniente de nuestros servicios meteorológicos. Hay dentro del proceso de comunicación, sobre todo del trabajo que hacemos como región. Todavía no podemos llegar a comunidades remotas y marginadas. Es el trabajo que debemos hacer dentro del Early Warning for All, ¿verdad? La alerta temprana para todos y todas. Y el problema crítico sigue siendo intercambio de datos y escasa capacidad. Escasa en realidad hay, ¿verdad? Pero estamos saturando incluso a los servicios meteorológicos que pueden, entonces hay inversión que hacer. Dentro del ámbito de las prioridades, se acordó en la reunión de la Asociación Regional fortalecer nuestro trabajo en el ámbito de alertas tempranas. Por supuesto, hay implementación WIGOS, HUS, ARBOM y por supuesto la política de datos de la OMM. También estamos trabajando en la gobernanza técnico-científica de los servicios meteorológicos y hay un avance importante en el desarrollo de un satélite geoestacionario regional. Ese es un trabajo bastante arduo. La previsión numérica multiescala está evolucionando y los datos hidrológicos están tomando posición, ¿verdad? A diferencia de los meteorológicos, hay una mayor gestión a hoy. Rápidamente, los logros, evidentemente WIGOS y WIS 2.0, ya estamos en concordancia algunos estados, algunos servicios meteorológicos de la región. Hay un proyecto HydroSOS que participan 10 países, por el momento la propuesta está en marcha. En Andes Más o en Andes Plus está fortaleciendo capacidades, sobre todo en el ámbito técnico y de formación. Progresos de nuestra iniciativa en Ecuador y Guyana de Early Warning for All, ya eso es una realidad allí. Y la publicación del estado del informe el estado del clima en América Latina y el Caribe 2024. Entonces, hay una coordinación fluida. CIMET ayuda muchísimo con actividades en conjunto con la AEMET. Y para finalizar las perspectivas, hay una acción regional de articulación de comités y proyectos. Se completará también el plan de trabajo regional. En Andes evalúa, es en Andes Plus, el proyecto en Andes Plus evalúa proyectar una segunda fase. Y lo importante y fundamental que seguimos haciendo es la formación continua y desarrollo de capacidades como prioridad. Muchas gracias.
شكرا لك السيد مينغو رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الثالث. الآن أدعو رئيس الإقليم الرابع أمريكا الشمالية وأمريكا الوسطى والبحر الكاريبي السيد إيفان توماس لتقديم تقريره. تفضل سيد.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and let me greet my colleague presidents of regional associations and, of course, all members of the Executive Council. I'll present at this time the RA4 activities in the period from the 78th session of the Executive Council to this EC 79 during that period. The 19th session of the Regional Association 4 took place in San Salvador, El Salvador, from 27th to 29th March. And I was re-elected as the president of the Regional Association, and Ms. Luz Graciela Morales de Calzadilla was also re-elected as the vice president of our Regional Association. In addition, my colleague Peter Clark of Jamaica was also ratified as our regional hydrological advisor. The RA4 19th session established a regional working structure comprising a management group, 3 regional committees, infrastructure, services, and the Hurricane Committee, and a hydrological and water coordination panel. 3 focal points were also established, one for education and training, one for gender, and one for youth. The association is currently finalizing the composition of each of the committees and constituent expert teams. The association has also identified a few regional challenges and gaps. Firstly, there have been difficulties in finding adequate complementarity with the activities proposed by technical commissions and the allocation of resources for regional activities. So that's one challenge that we have experienced. Secondly, there continues to be insufficient interaction between the subsidiary bodies of RA4 and the standing committees of INFCOM and CIRCOM. We're continuing to identify how best we can deal with that, and some things are on the table right now that we're pursuing. It remains, however, one of our challenges and demonstrates that more work is required to achieve the WMO regional reform that we are pursuing. The technical commissions also need to be kept abreast of what is happening in the regions and vice versa. This will be crucial to inform the way that planning and budgeting is done in the WMO, with a greater participation of the regional associations to address our regional priorities. It is therefore important to improve the planning process in WMO, taking into consideration the regional implementation plans that have been developed by the regional association. However, with the challenges, there have been notable achievements. Firstly, we have had 51 technical webinars and training events, which were organized for the benefit of our members, and we held since the 18th session in February of, and these were held since the 18th session in February of 2021. RA4 has leveraged the virtual tools for a considerable amount of its activities. Secondly, we continue to advance the activities of the regional WIGUS implementation plan for RA4 through our infrastructure committee, the new regional WIGUS centers, which are currently operating in pilot mode, and the WIGUS, OSCA Surface, and WDQMS national focal points. We also continue to hold sessions of the RA4 Hydrological Advisors Forum in support of the work of the RA4 Hydrological and Water Coordination Panel. Fourthly, fellowships continue to be implemented under the WMO regional budget and the Voluntary Cooperation Program, the VCP, and the RA4 regional training centers in Barbados and Costa Rica continue to play an important role in the implementation of the fellowship program. We also have the achievement of joint activities with the Conference of Directors of Ibero-American Meteorological and Hydrological Services, that's CIMET, and the Caribbean Meteorological Organization, CMO, and these have been coordinated and implemented. With the aim of paying greater attention to the mandate of the Early Warnings for All initiative, the region decided to give continuity to the expert team on disaster risk reduction, having expanded from a DRR focal point. The team will propose actions to foster collaboration between the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services and the disaster management agencies, and to promote the implementation of the CAP system by members to facilitate the issuance of hydrometeorological alerts. The regional structure and capabilities for research were also strengthened in the recent period with the establishment of a new expert team on research and modeling. And finally, under achievements, the WMO implemented a portfolio of 3 extra budgetary funded projects and activities in support of WMO members in RA4, amounting to approximately 5 million Swiss francs worth of investment in weather, water, and climate services. Following the successful conclusion of the 19th session of the RA4 in March of 2025, the regional priorities and requirements, working structure, and work program were established, and efforts are currently underway to nominate and appoint experts to the new subsidiary bodies to develop or reconfirm their terms of reference, review the activities to be carried out under the regional work program, assign responsibilities, and launch the first activities of the various groups during the second half of this year. RA4 recommends that high priority be given to the execution of the RA4 implementation plans for WIGUS, for WIS, for the DRR, and for hydrology, and to the development of the Early Warnings for All initiative in the Caribbean. Concerns persist regarding issues like hurricanes and associated extreme weather events, as well as the maintenance of the quality management systems and strategies for cost recovery. Members and the WMO Secretariat are urged to prioritize these matters to effectively address our forthcoming challenges. Thank you very much.
شكرا السيد إيفان رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي الرابع. شكرا. أخيرا أدعو رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي السادس أوروبا الدكتورة إلينا لتقديم تقريرها. تفضلي سيدة.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear Secretary General, Vice President, dear member of the Executive Council, dear friends of the President of the Regional Association within WMO. Please allow me to present the report. Various significant efforts have been made in our region, ERA 6, to implement various priority activity. I will start with the implementation of WMO Unified Data Policy and improving seamless data exchange across member states. Regional WIGO Center in Regional Association 6 have operated in pilot mode since July 2024, fulfilling mandatory function outlined in the WMO guide. These regional WIGO center nodes run by EUMEDNet, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Romania, Turkey, and jointly by Kazakhstan, Russian Federation, and Belarus support members via the incident management system. Reborn Focus Group under the Regional Association 6 Working Group for Observation, Infrastructure, and Information Systems develop an action plan for reborn design and implementation. Based on priority hazard assessment by the Regional Association 6 members, a phased approach was proposed starting with floods in this year in 2025, followed by thunderstorm, drought, and heat wave after. ERA 6 made significant progress in advancing climate services tailored to users by engaging UN resident coordinators, UN country teams, national meteorological and hydrological services, and experts from sectors like agriculture, health, and disaster preparedness. ERA 6 Regional Climate Center User Forum and the WMO webinar on enhancing the potential application on climate forecast highlight the growing demand for actionable services such as urban forecasting, agricultural advisory, and health-related impact. Additionally, the yearly warning for all roadmap and action plan for Regional Association 6 was approved at the last session in October 2024, which include action to be implemented at regional or sub-regional level to improve the yearly warning capacity across the region. Furthermore, Regional Association 6 high-level task team on yearly warning for all has been established to oversee the implementation of the roadmap and action plan. In 2025, WMO and Copernicus Climate Change Service published second time a joint European State of the Climate report, including description and analysis of climate conditions in Europe, covering variables for across the air system, key events, and their impact. ERA 6 has made significant progress in fostering collaboration with the research community, established the Biennial Scientific Forum, and approved the regional research program aimed at transferring research into operational activity. The upcoming forum, set for 4 to 6 November 2025 in Prague, will focus on enhancing water and heat resilience in Regional Association 6. ERA 6 members were engaged in the HydroSOS implementation process through key events such as HydroS side session during the Drought Resilience Plus 10 conference, which provide insights into its functionality and tools for monitoring hydrological condition. Also, the ERA 6 task team on HydroS has been working to advance the system, emphasizing collaboration, data sharing, and capacity development. Challenge mentioned in my previous report, including inadequate yearly warning system capacity in certain part of the region, limited participation of the ERA 6 members in implementation of WMO program and activity, as well as understaffing of the Regional Office for Europe, remain largely unresolved and in our attention for future improvement. For this reason, will be necessary to improve the capacity of number of the national meteorological and hydrological services in Southeast Europe, the South Caucasus and Middle East remain a significant challenge. While some national level projects support the yearly warning for all initiative, several ERA 6 members still lack the necessary support and funding for completing yearly warning system. For this reason, efforts are recommended to be increased to mobilize resources to support these members with significant gaps in their yearly warning services, as well as sub-regional initiative relevant to yearly warning for all, such as CMUS system. Data accessibility and integration are also major challenge. Despite WMO open data policy, national regulation, technical differences, and security concern hinder data sharing. Additionally, staff shortage at national meteorological and hydrological contribute to limited participation in WMO program, lack of national focal point, and fewer active experts in our region to implement Regional 6 mechanism. Finally, the increasing number of activity within WMO programs put pressure on both member state, national meteorological and hydrological services, and the WMO Regional Office for Europe, which remain understaffed compared with other regional offices. This impacts the office's ability to coordinate activity and address the need of its members. While I understand that the current financial climate is challenging, ensuring adequate human resource in the Regional Office for Europe is essential and could be addressed independent of regional reform process, potentially by existing secretariat's resource. Thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا دكتورة إلينا رئيس الاتحاد الإقليمي السادس. شكرا. الآن لضيق الوقت عندنا 5 دقائق ممكن لأي عضو يرغب في أخذ الكلمة. إذن لا توجد أي كلمة، وبهذا يمكننا اعتماد مسودة مشروع القرار 2/1. لا أرى أي اعتراض. إذن تم اعتماد مسودة مشروع القرار 2/1. شكرا لكم. سوف يقوم السيد أوين موران نائبي الثاني بإدارة بقية هذه الجلسة المسائية. شكرا.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so now we're we're turning to item 3 on the agenda. That's strategic priorities. And we're going to start with item 3.1. That's early warnings for all, the Early Warnings for All initiative. So we're going to be looking at document 3.1. That's titled Observations of the Executive Council on Progress with the Implementation of the WMO Roadmap for Early Warnings for All. And that's a draft 2. It's work in progress. And also there's an information document. That's information document 3.1. And that's also titled Progress with the Implementation of the WMO Roadmap for the Early Warnings for All initiative. Okay, so we had an update on the general progress with Early Warnings for All, which is meant to represent the update that we've already given to the Technical Coordination Committee, but because we're 40 minutes behind schedule, we're just going to jump straight to the draft resolution. We're focusing on draft resolution 3.1/1, and this is focusing on the 5 elements of the update in information document 3.1. That's part A, B, C, D, and E. So it's all set out there very clearly for you. And the full presentation is available on the Executive Council portal anyhow. Right then. So I will just point out, though, part of this resolution refers to an endorsement of the procedures associated with developing the amendments to the technical regulations in relation to early warning systems. So it's not the purpose of this discussion to rediscuss those amendments. But we are here to take stock of any views that you might have. So just to be very, very clear, we're not redoing the work or re-engaging in the discussion that has already been extensively engaged in by the President of CERCOM, etc., and the Secretariat. Right then, so on that basis, I'm going to hand over to Cyril Honore to present the draft resolution 3.1/1 and the amendments that have been proposed to the document. Over to you, Cyril.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear Executive Council members, good afternoon. May we have the presentation with the first slide, please? This document has a background dating back to Congress 19 resolution on early warning for all, and importantly on your deliberation resolution from last session of EC 78 on the TCC role in coordinating and making the progress review of the WMO contribution to the initiative, and decision 2 of the same Executive Council session, identifying that an extraordinary session of CERCOM would be the most efficient and cost-effective approach to allowing the submission of amended technical regulations to the extraordinary Congress session in this year, 2025. So these documents, its information paper, and all the background documents were reviewed successively by TCC and PAC last April. And so as a result, and all those documents are also available on the Executive Council website. So through this document 3.1, EC is invited to review and endorse, I will start by the end maybe, the procedure, as the chair mentioned, followed for the development of and the consultations about the early warning services technical regulation, which come as proposed amendments to the WMO Technical Regulation Volume 1, also known as WMO number 49. And this endorsement will come in support of the CERCOM recommendation to the Extraordinary Congress session next October. EC is also invited to note and express its appreciation of the reporting information and the proposals on the way forward with regards to monitoring alignment, roadmap activities adjustments, appearing under the notes with appreciation section of the document. This information was made available through the set of documents on the website. And then the requests are addressed to the president of the technical commissions in relation with this technical regulation development, going beyond the initial inventory that was developed and made available as of now, to go beyond and with the intent of managing the consistency and completeness of technical regulations supporting early warning for all implementation, reviewing of existing provisions or planned provisions, as well as identifying the need for new technical regulation development if needed. The requests also go to the Secretary General on the communication to members on the process and the progress of our contribution as the organization to this initiative, as well as facilitating partnerships and support to members. And so this is more or less what the document is about, Mr. Chair. The various components build a kind of comprehensive set of information. But as you mentioned, with regard to technical regulations, the next round of discussions about the content will be in the run-up to Congress in October. So as we stand here today, the document that will be now displayed for your review is a work in progress version, which built on the second draft version, meaning that the amendments proposed by the President of Regional Association 1 Africa and Professor Appenzeller appear in track changes. Additional amendments proposed by Mr. Nomura also in track changes, but highlighted in yellow.
Thank you very much. So we might bring the document up on screen, please. Or we might work through the individual proposed changes one by one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move through the document, the floor is open for any comments or questions or observations that anybody might have. Checking online. Nobody's online. Nope. Okay. So yes, so I think we can work through the document. Cyril, you might bring us to the, oh, sorry, apologies. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Nomura Ryoichi, Director General of the Japan Meteorological Agency. This is my first EC session to attend as the acting EC member. I am very honored to be part of the WMO Executive Council with the spirit of international cooperation. I am committed to working closely with you all to ensure that the WMO continues to fulfill its vital mission and meets evolving global needs for meteorological and hydrological services. Regarding the draft resolution 3.1/1, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to all the people involved for developing this resolution and early warning for all initiative. Allow me to have two comments in relation to proposed amendments, which are already incorporated in work in progress document. The first is regarding the request, the Technical Commission's paragraph. I fully agree with the importance of enhancing the WMO technical regulations and related guidance materials to further promote early warning for all. However, the current draft inventory seems to be too comprehensive and perhaps includes too many items. So given the limited resources and time available, we need to ask ourselves what are truly needed to deliver impactful outcomes for early warning for all. In this regard, I propose to refine, consolidate, and prioritize the draft inventory, taking fully into account real challenges and the needs of members from developing countries, as well as multilateral and bilateral development partners. Progress should be reported to the Executive Council for its consideration and guidance. The second is about the proposed process for the update of the activity table presented in Annex. We should recall that this activity table was treated as an INF document at the last EC session and was not even discussed or endorsed at the plenary. It will be procedurally inconsistent for the EC to endorse the process for the update of such table. Therefore, I'd propose deleting the annex and instead keeping it as an INF document just for the record of the TCC's work. I believe that the important thing now is to identify and focus on priority issues rather than listing all activities related to early warning for all. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nomura. So the first proposal is to place the, you might go to the proposal to change the, okay, we'll work through them one at a time. So the first suggested text change relates to notes with application, and I will read out the proposed new text, which is the methodology developed by TCC to consider and approve changes to the living tables supporting the Early Warnings for All roadmap contained in EC Inf 3.1 Part E. So that's the proposed text. Has anybody any objection to that change? And to get the full context, we might scroll down to the next section. Thank you. So the endorses the methodology for the amendment of the Early Warnings for All roadmap as presented in the annex. So this suggestion here is not to leave that in the annex of this document, but to place it for the sake of consistency with procedure in an information document. So that's a change to the structure of the documents. So the original proposal was to have methodology outlined in an annex in this document, but the proposal is to place it in an information document. This is to be consistent with the way decisions have been made in relation to this process up to this point. Has anybody any objection to that? Okay, thank you very much. And then we have a change to the text in the requests to the technical commissions. I will read it out if you don't mind. So the proposed new text is requests technical commissions to further refine, consolidate and prioritize the inventory, taking fully into account the needs and challenges of the members, especially those from developing countries, as well as multilateral and bilateral development partners in their effort to develop early warning systems in consideration of outcomes of CG Extraordinary 2025. I will come to the remainder, but has anybody any objections to that particular change? I don't see any hands. And I'll ask my secretarial colleagues to let me know if I'm missing anybody. So then we have another change, which I think is the final change from Dr. Nomura. Technical regulations for this is the final sentence, proposed sentence, technical regulations for early warnings for all, if necessary, supported with guidance and best practices and reported to the EC for its consideration. Okay. So I don't see anybody. Okay. Have we completed the interventions from Dr. Nomura? Okay, so we might move on to the next proposed change, please.
Yeah, just one point, Mr. Chair. The deletion of the annex here is needed for consistency with what was just approved. That's it. But there are other proposed changes in the text further up.
Okay, so we're just clarifying, Cyril is just clarifying that the deletion of all that text is the deletion of an annex from the main document, so that that material will be taken out and included in the information document. So that's clear.
Right, now we have an input from the president of RA1.
So next, we'll hand over to Mr. Fentonay, President of RA1, who has made an intervention. So you've suggested text, so you might talk us through the rationale for that suggested change, please.
Thank you very much, Vice President. And I think the issue is very well captured after the requests of the President of Technical Commission. There is encouraged to insert new paragraphs there, encourages members to initiate their national workshops, develop and implement the early warning for all roadmaps. So that the all member countries can be part of the national early warning for all initiatives. So I think that is well captured and addressed.
Thank you very much. So the suggested proposed new text encourages members to engage in the Early Warnings for All initiative, take ownership and implement it based on appropriate national arrangements. Has anybody any comments or interventions in relation to that particular item? Okay, it appears nobody has anything. Thank you very much. So the next suggested intervention or change to the document is from Christoph. So we might hand the floor over to Christoph.
Thank you, Chair. And I just would like to re-emphasize the important role of capacity development for the Early Warning for All initiative and for its success. And of course, I would like to thank the TCC and the Secretary for its effort, in particular to promote the member-to-member support, as we requested last time at the EC. And this is really a very effective approach, in my opinion, and I think I encourage you to continue that effort. So I acknowledge that the list provided with WMO projects containing more than 130 countries, but however, this is not really a complete list that gives a complete overview of all the initiatives that strengthen the NMHSs worldwide. To give just one example, so MeteoSwiss is currently involved in a project in Albania, funded by the Green Climate Fund. The Albanian NMHS is currently supported by 3 projects, yet none of these is listed in the given background information. So that the idea was that I would like to request the Secretary to complement this list of projects with all projects that are implemented with the NMHSs, even those without direct WMO involvement. This enables the organization to acquire additional budgetary resources for the implementation of Early Warning for All, and it strengthens the WMO and its members. So a comprehensive overview would also be useful to position WMO as a key organization for weather and climate in the UN 80 reform. We have submitted the according text, as you can see on the screen, and I would like to amend that text because I would like to add the word technical authority in the text, just after the technical advisor, in order to make sure it is also includes projects funded by SOF. If you could add that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Appenzeller. I see the Secretariat would like to take the floor. Johan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Professor. 100% correct. It is something which our Secretary General also highlighted to the team, is to make sure that we do provide all of that information. If it's not coming through the door of the WMO, it's difficult for us to put that into our consolidated list of various early warnings for all projects. However, we are busy with a consolidated of what we would like to call observatory list, which falls under monitoring and evaluation. We just need to be aware that everything that we collect, we need to make sure that there's a monitoring and evaluation part, that we can quantify the amount and where it's specifically going to. What is the activity that the fund is addressing in that particular country? Is it addressing the needs based on the assessments we've done with the members, or was it just done between the member state and or the funder at the end of the day? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And my own remark as the chair of the Technical Coordination Committee, I think this aligns with the general tidying up and the coherency, the work that's been done to ensure that all the background documentation is consistent, aligned and coherent. So this, I think, will improve that overall method or process. So do you want to take the floor, Cyril?
Yeah, maybe we could capture the requested 2 words addition by Professor Appenzeller live in the text here. So the cursor is well placed, and I believe he could read.
While that's being
Christoph.
added.
I can repeat that. So
Okay.
it is just add or technical authority in the text just after technical advisor or technical authority. Okay, so that makes sure that SOF is also covered.
Very good. Thank you, Matt, very much. Albert, did I see you seeking the floor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. Before you leave the request for the Secretary General, I wonder if you would like to go back to request the Secretary General too. There it starts with to report online. It sounds a little bit different because normally the SG will
Okay, so
will request. Yes.
we'll come to that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close off this intervention and I'll come to that, Albert, if that's okay. So, and okay, Ian, you're not looking for the floor. So what I'll do is we're going to close off this intervention and then we'll come to you. Right then. So focusing on the changes from Professor Appenzeller, has anybody anything that further they'd like to add or change? Or any suggested queries or further clarifications?
No.
We apologize.
We're getting some breakthrough there, certainly in my ear anyway.
And
So, right then, right then. So I'm just going to read out the, oh, excuse me. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to emphasize the importance of the raise awareness of the members of the early warning for all implementation process, etc. Somehow, it seems that the early warning for all just targeted up to 2027. I'm sorry that I could not see any sentence regarding the sustainability of the early warning for all beyond 2027. So I'm just wondering, would be that necessary to be highlighted under the request of the Secretary General, number one, to raise awareness of member of the early warning for all implementation process, including the monitoring and evaluation framework and dashboard toolkit and rapid assessment, and maintain the sustainability of the implementation. It's just thinking, not only stop in 2027. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Karnawati, for that intervention. Okay, we will come back to that intervention in a second, but I'll just close off the intervention from Professor Appenzeller first. So I'm going to read the suggested text change by Christoph, and we can see if we're happy with it. So the first is the requests number 3 to provide a comprehensive overview of projects contributing to Pillar 2 of Early Warnings for All by complementing WMO projects with those where WMO acts as technical advisor or technical authority, and those where WMO facilitates collaboration between national meteorological and hydrological services without direct involvement. So that's the first change. The second one relates to request number 4 to further accelerate partnerships between WMO members in support of WMO capacity development activities. And then, if I'm not mistaken, item number 5, that's requests number 5, is to read. Oh, sorry, that's another intervention. Apologies. So there's just 2. So there's 3 and 4 as I've read out. I'm getting a nod from Christoph. Has anybody any comments or further suggested changes? Okay, so we're taking that as accepted. I'm going to go back to the suggested change by Karnawati, and then I'll go back to Albert's question. So the proposed change to requests is number 1, to raise awareness. I'm going to read out the text if you don't mind. Is to raise awareness of members of the Early Warnings for All implementation process, including the monitoring and evaluation framework and dashboard, toolkit and rapid assessment, and maintain the sustainability of implementation. Would anybody like to intervene in relation to that suggested change? I'll give the floor to Co, who'd like to make a comment.
First, I'll say that I think that language is perfectly suitable, but I just wanted to offer some of the thinking about the 2027 and beyond concept, because we have had extensive conversations about this topic, recognizing that early warning, of course, for this organization will go on for a very long time. 2027 is the end of the initiative, but early warning has preceded the initiative and will continue beyond that. But we are being very careful in the context of the initiative to stay within the bounds of this 2027. It's a 5-year initiative. We've had instruction from the UN Secretary General that it's helpful to keep ambition going towards this goal. So I'm just sharing that as background. I think the language as you've drafted it is fine. I just wanted to share some of the background about how we refer to 2027, et cetera.
That's useful. 2027 is a milestone, but the journey doesn't stop there. It continues, and the language here captures that. That's excellent. Thank you very much. Albert, apologies for the delay. We're back to you now. You had a query in relation to the use of the word online in requests 2, I think.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor back. Yes, that's because normally the case is that the Secretary General will report to the Congress, to the EC, but not, I don't think right now it's reporting online. Maybe we have to, a suggestion will be to report to the members. If it is online or through a letter, it can be, but I think maybe we have to rethink about the online. Or you have another idea why you have mentioned it. So I seek some clarification for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Johan, then Ian, and then Professor Endesby. Johan.
Thank you, Chair. Where's Albert? Thank you, Albert. Actually, this was also raised during the TCC, Mr. President, if you may recall. This is not an online briefing. This is where the 4 various implementing pillars, the one on the operational plan, the strategic with the 4 various things which are now consolidated in one, will become online available to members. Therefore, if you then go to the Early Warnings for All website, you will find all of this consolidated in one online view for members to see the progress with regards to Early Warnings for All in all the countries with funding, all of that one shot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is ambiguous, Albert, and we will correct it. Ian?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. I just hope I'm not just about to steal Penny Endesby's intervention that follows. She is, after all, my boss back at home, so fingers crossed on that one. Just a couple of things. I think the raising the awareness of members and how the various toolkits and the rapid assessment toolkit, etc., are being used is a really, really important thing. And I think we've actually got an opportunity in, whether it's in request 1 or request 2, let's just add a hyperlink in there to those resources. That in itself is an immediate way where people have access to that. So it's just a very, very simple thing. I'm sure the Secretariat can stick the relevant hyperlinks in for those resources. Just a second thing on the projects as well, just to back up the interventions that made on that. The Services Commission Management Group has on its quarterly management group calls, we have a standing agenda item on projects and how they support the various aspects of everything we do, including Early Warnings for All. We'll have a very substantive agenda item on projects and ownership and all the rest of it, the governance of that at the management group, which we'll be holding face-to-face in December of this year. Very delighted to report that we've been invited to South Africa by the PRI South Africa to hold that meeting. So CIRCOM demonstrating going to the regions rather than bringing the regions to CIRCOM. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And before I go to Penny, just hyperlinks don't persist. So we might add the hyperlink underneath the requests so it doesn't interfere with the decision itself, because the hyperlink is volatile in a sense, but it's a good suggestion. Thank you very much. Professor Endesby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. And I'm sorry to come back to bullet 1, but I think it's now ambiguous. So as it was written, it was a bullet about raising awareness. I think the intention of Professor Karnawati was that the Secretary General should themselves maintain the sustainability, not to raise the awareness of maintaining the sustainability. If that's the case, that should probably be a separate item. So request the Secretary General to maintain the sustainability. If it is about raising awareness, then it needs to be to raise awareness of the members of the need to maintain the sustainability or something. But I think it was the former.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're adding in another requests. We're putting a full stop at the end of the word assessment. Is that correct? Maybe you might guide me, Professor Endesby, and then produce a new request.
Providing that's what Professor Karnawati intended, yes, then I think it should be stop after assessment.
Well, let's put it on screen and see how it looks.
And then to maintain as
Okay.
like that.
To maintain.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're seeing nodding. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much. Cyril.
If I may on this one, and it goes maybe one step beyond Professor Endesby. The Secretary General of the organization cannot maintain sustainability on her own, right? So this item about sustainability may be connected to both the encouragement to members to engage, take ownership, and implement, right, with a sustainable perspective. Or it could be also linked to the request number 6. And so at least in the text as it is now, maintain is maybe a bit too strong compared to what Secretariat can do, but support sustainability. Because sustainability is also driven at the country level, right? If there is no engagement at the country level, whatever Secretariat is going to do is something different.
Okay, while we're thinking about that, we might go back to Albert. Oh, sorry, we've addressed that. So in item number 3, to make that, to improve the clarity of the language in request number 3, so it's request the Secretary General to report to the EC and online. Is that, does that add sufficient clarity? No? Albert, if you have a suggestion, please make it.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, that's true because, yeah, I know, I understand what is the idea behind it, but still, for a good clarity of one request to the Secretary General is actually to, yes, report to the members. That'd be fine.
So the suggestion is to report to the members. No, I think leave online is there. Leave online there, I think. Yeah, we're happy with online. Oh, delete online. Okay. Thank you. And in terms of the language, Penny, were you looking for the floor again? Yeah, apologies.
Just trying to come back on Cyril's point, if that's all right, Mr. Vice President. Perhaps we could compromise on to support members to maintain the sustainability, and then I think it captures a more feasible.
Thank you very much. To support members to maintain. So if you might go to the start of requests to, please, and at the start of the sentence, add to support members to. Okay, so I'll just, as a matter of process, read that suggested text from Professor Karnawati and Professor Endersby to support members to maintain the sustainability of implementation. Has anybody any suggested changes to that? I don't see anybody. Oh, sorry. President of RA6.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe we could add on the sentence to the sustainability of yearly warning implementation process, because what refer to the implementation.
So we'll just modify the text again. So to support members to maintain the sustainability of the early
warning for all implementation. Yes.
Okay, so the early EW for all implementation, we already have the word you can put in EW for all implementation, and after implementation, you might add process, please. Thank you very much. To support members to maintain the sustainability of the early warning for all implementation process. I'll remind you, we have approximately 5 minutes left in this item, so we need to get through other interventions. Okay, so that's request number 2, edited, I think. And we were accepting that edit. And we have accepted 4 and 5. And I think South Africa is seeking the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it was a bit of a duplication because, first of all, we supporting the members under 2, and then we continue supporting least developed countries. But I think I'm okay with that, Chair. We're emphasizing the support for least developed countries and small island states, I think. So I'm good with that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a particular emphasis we're putting on item number 6, which brings us to the intervention from President from Region 1, which is to continue supporting least developed countries, LDCs, and small island developing states, SIDS, in implementing Early Warning for All initiative, the Early Warnings for All initiative, through appropriate arrangements and resource mobilization. Has anybody any objection to that suggested change to requests? Okay, I don't think I see any further changes. So I will ask the Secretary to move on to the next change, if there is one.
No, that's it, Mr. Chair. The last paragraph is endorses the procedure.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, for your intervention and your suggested changes. That's really appreciated. So unless anybody has any objection, I will, with your permission, move on to declare the draft resolution, that's resolution 3.1/1 adopted. Everybody comfortable with that? And then I will declare document 3.1 adopted. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, there was a question online, but that was from an observer. Yeah, so. Right then, folks, we have time now to take a statement from the Director General of UMETSAT. Thank you very much. So I'll hand over to Phil Evans, who we're very glad to have for him to be joining us here. So the floor is yours, Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to address WMO Executive Council on behalf of the Coordination Group for Meteorological Satellites, CGMS, a group consisting of institutional space agencies, together with WMO, who represent the global user community, that focuses on securing operational observational satellite data for weather, climate, and early warning applications. CGMS plenary met in Evian, France, from the 3rd to the 5th of June. This was an opportunity for CGMS members to reaffirm their commitment to support the space-based component of the global observing system of WMO. Satellite data today are the main input into numerical weather prediction models, resulting in more accurate forecasts and a better understanding of our Earth system. According to the WMO OSCAR database, the space-based component of the WMO Global Observing System is composed of 200 satellites operated by CGMS members. And since the last WMO Executive Council, 17 new satellites have been or are about to be launched. CGMS contributions are therefore solid and continuously improving. These observations contribute to monitoring the Earth system, including the atmosphere, temperature, moisture, atmospheric composition, etc., and contribute to the objectives of most of the WMO initiatives, such as the expanded World Weather Watch, Global Cryosphere Watch, and of course, Early Warnings for All. During the CGMS plenary, we reviewed the gaps in observations, and CGMS discussed how to ensure that the wealth of data delivered through satellites could be made accessible to the widest possible global community and to all WMO members, including the Global South, and support the implementation of WMO initiatives. Another important topic discussed at the meeting was the evolution of the global observing system. As we've seen this morning, with the revolution of AI and machine learning, the way we model the Earth system is changing rapidly, and the modeling community is expected to access more diverse observations of good quality. This presents a key opportunity to exploit synergies between CGMS and WMO infrastructure initiatives. A challenge of the evolution of the global observing system, currently being discussed with WMO as part of the future WIGOS Vision 2050, will be to provide an architecture that is solid but flexible enough to respond to these rapidly evolving user needs. If CGMS members manage to address this challenge in a globally coordinated way, the value of satellite observations that we will collectively deliver will only increase. To this end, CGMS is currently elaborating a consolidated input, which will be delivered to WMO by mid-26, so that it can be taken into consideration when developing the WIGOS Vision 2050. In this process, the role the private sector will play should not be ignored, of course. And in coordination with WMO, CGMS discussed how to establish the proper interfaces with commercial satellite data providers. The WMO Space Programme plays a key role in maintaining the strong dialogue between WMO and the CGMS members. The 16th session of the consultative meeting on high-level policy on satellite matters, planned in early 26, will be a good opportunity to review the progress made in this area. The plenary also discussed other interactions with WMO, elaborating on the dialogue that we started on cryosphere monitoring and on the delivery of space weather observations. Despite the fact that NMHSs around the world are delivering services with significant positive impact on societies and economies, the demonstration of socioeconomic benefits of satellite systems will remain a prerequisite to secure the approval of new programs by CGMS members. The CGMS plenary therefore discussed how such future quantitative socioeconomic benefit studies could be better coordinated at a global level. The outcome of our recent plenary demonstrates how productive the interaction between WMO and CGMS is, and it's the intention of CGMS members to continue these interactions in the long term. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Phil Evans, the Director General of EUMETSAT. And certainly the work being carried out by CGMS is absolutely critical for maintaining the predictive capability we have now and addressing the growing intensity of extreme weather events and the growing cost and impacts. And through your engagements and interfaces with the private sector and addressing issues such as coordinated socioeconomic benefit studies is an absolutely key area of activity. So thank you very much for that update. That's greatly appreciated. Okay, folks, with your permission, I'll move on to the next agenda item, and that's item 3.2, and that relates to Global Greenhouse Gas Watch. We are going to be reviewing one recommendation, and this relates to two documents. That's document 3.2, titled Progress on the Implementation Plan for the Greenhouse Gas Watch. That document is in its second draft, I think, but certainly is a work in progress document. And there's also an information document associated with this item, and that's Inf 3.2, and it's of the same title. That's Progress of the Implementation Plan for the Greenhouse Gas Watch. Right then, so I will, to get the ball rolling, I'll hand over to Nir, the Senior Director of Infrastructure, Nir Stav. And following this, we are delighted to welcome the co-chair of the advisory group on G3W, Greg Carmichael. But first, we hand over to Nir. The floor is yours.
As you may recall, we are in the process of the implementation of the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch. So you have two documents. You have the Doc 3.2 and the INF document. And I'm happy to hand over to Greg that is heading this advisory group and the effort. Thanks.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm Greg Carmichael. I co-chair the advisory group for the G3W activity, and I have just a few slides to present on the technical progress that's been made on the implementation. So in terms of, I'm sorry, go back, next slide. First. I want to give you just a recap. Again, the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch, it's got some, maybe take it out of presentation mode. It's got some timer on it apparently, so sorry. So while the slide's coming up, I'll just talk to you about the what we've done. So again, from the first year of the pre-implementation, to remind you that G3W is firmly embedded in the expanded World Weather Watch program. It builds upon the activities, longstanding activities in terms of measuring, modeling, and analyzing greenhouse gas observations in the Global Atmospheric Watch program. It also builds upon what we just heard from the major investments that have been made and are being made in terms of the satellite community. Great advancements and more on the books in terms of the capabilities to measure greenhouse gases from space and also to identify and map significant emission sources of greenhouse gases. It also builds upon the activities that are taking place in many, many countries around the world and complements that are where the countries are aiming to provide high quality, timely, and routine update of information on greenhouse gases at the global scale. And certainly the goal of this is to take all of these wonderful activities and to place them again into the World Weather Watch framework and operationalize these components. And so it is firmly being embedded and implemented and has to be implemented through WIPs and lists and other activities. And we've made we're making progress in that. And finally, it is very important from this information is needed by the countries, and also it needs to be from an international perspective. And so this program does provide a single conduit into the UN system for providing data products and also, very importantly, capacity development. Next slide, please. So in the implementation progress that we made, we've been able to engage the broad community in the important aspects of key aspects of implementation. And I want to point out when we set up these teams, we firmly embedded them into the already existing activities of the World Weather Watch program and the Global Atmospheric Watch program and the important bodies and committees within IFICOM, the Research Board, and CERBCOM. So again, we built it as a very collaborative activity to complement and support these other longstanding. And so we've established 3 technical teams, network design, data, and modeling. We've established the advisory group, and we've been working, the groups have been working throughout the year. And very importantly, they've all been working remotely and through the support of the Secretariat. And we had our first face-to-face meeting where we really accelerated the progress in terms of all the teams working together for the goals of achieving by the end of this year a prototype of what can be expected in terms of the G3W. And the next slide gives us a quick summary of, again, the G3W is being built upon 3 centers, one in Europe, one in North America, and one in Japan, the US. And that what we're doing then in this first workshop, we really laid out the data requirements that are needed for the production of the concentrations and the estimated fluxes of greenhouse gases by these three centers in a coordinated way and with the same outputs and the same criteria being as is needed for operationalizing. The data flow and workflows to the WISP system have also been actively engaged. The satellite community pipeline is well established. We have working aspects of the pipeline for the in-situ data, for the ground-based data, and then, of course, the oceanic observations are critical, and these will come in as we move through the pre-implementation phase and move forward. Next slide. Very importantly, in the operational perspective, we are making progress in terms of we have a draft of the WIPS manual for the G3W activities, and that's identified in already important mapping, required mapping in terms of the data flows and the data products and the standardization of those products. Next slide. And just to give you an example of what this will look like, already the major centers are exchanging data in terms of greenhouse gases in a common framework, projecting it in a common framework. And you can see, I won't have time to talk about this, but production of the concentrations is occurring right now within these centers at the required frequency and resolution. The net fluxes are moving towards the requirement of the timely being updated on a monthly basis. The centers are not quite there, but we have a pathway for doing that. And it just gives you an example of the sorts of information that will be available globally, but also importantly, this sort of information will be available in data poor regions as well as in data rich regions, and that will facilitate and provide information on concentrations and fluxes for a variety of applications. So, and again, it's all being done under the framework of data, open, transparent, traceable information. Next slide. So that takes us to
so over to you, Nir. Okay, so what I'll do is first of all, I'll open the floor for any comments excuse me, I'll just open the floor for any comments or questions or queries that people might have in relation to Greg's presentation. Sarah Jones has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Just at this stage, a thank you to Greg for this very clear overview of where we are. We very much welcome the update on the Greenhouse Gas Watch program and also the critical assessment in the paper that we're now going to discuss. And we also very much appreciate the efforts that have been made by the Secretariat and by the members to mobilize the resources for the Greenhouse Gas Watch program. We'll get to the paper, and we have a recommendation of how to proceed for the Greenhouse Gas Watch program. And we recognize very clearly the key roles of both the World Weather Watch programs and the Global Atmosphere Watch program in really making a success out of the Greenhouse Gas Watch program. But we note that in the proposal that we're about to discuss, we're talking about how to really operationalize these programs, and we would like more ideas on how this will actually be implemented, how the process will continue to be driven forwards whilst not adversely affecting the, to quote my colleague, Professor Penny Endersby, who has already brought this into the document, without adversely affecting the actual programs themselves. So how's it going to be driven forwards? How are the relative roles of the existing programs compared to the drive that is still needed to continue to push forwards this important topic? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sarah. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Johnson notes and thanks Greg for his update on the progress to date on the implementation of the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch and acknowledges the proposal for the implementation of G3W to be pursued through its integration into existing WMO programs such as the World Weather Watch and GORE. PAC 1 in April requested more detail on the proposed inclusion of G3W in the work plans of WWW and GORE in the documents for EC 79 in order to have clarity on the holistic programmatic and financial effects of the proposed integration. We note and thank the Secretariat for including some additional information in this regard in the EC Inf on this agenda item. However, understand that there was not a lot of time between the end of PAC and the commencement of EC 79 to include the level of detail which I think we would be interested in seeing. So accordingly, we note that the Secretary-General's current direction to OMRG and its task team to review and present recommendations to the Extraordinary Congress in October on how WMO will remain resilient and responsive to members' core needs. We request that as part of that, the relevant documents detailing proposals for WWW and GORE clearly identify any integrated G3W actions and how they will be undertaken without adversely impacting their work plans. So we're interested in more detail in that regard, similar to the intervention just given by the PR of Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise. I don't see anyone else seeking the floor. Right then, I'll hand over to Nir, and you can take us through the document, please.
Okay. So we are talking about draft 2 and then work in progress 1. This is the latest. And let's go over the suggested edits. Scroll down, please. Okay, stop. Okay, so here we have the reaffirming, and maybe we'll ask those that suggested.
Very good. Thank you very much. So we have two interventions, one from Ken Graham and one from Dr. Nomura. So we might hand over to Ken Graham first. You might outline the rationale behind the suggested edit, and then I'll hand over to Dr. Nomura.
Sure. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Ken sends his regards to you all and is sorry he could not join us this week. It falls very close to the start of hurricane season, and there's a lot of activity around that for him this year. So with respect to this particular suggestion on top of the suggested test by Mr. Nomura, we support the valuable addition from the PR from Japan, but we're proposing just to make this edit to make it a little bit clearer that this principle should apply to all national policies and be more general and not so specific to one individual policy held by nations. So that's why we just suggested the change on top of the language that was submitted already. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The floor is open to Dr. Nomura.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice President. I support the United States talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, right then, so we might just read the text and we'll open the floor for any comments that people might have. Reaffirming WMO's role as a coordinator of activities undertaken by members and as provider of technical standards and guidance, that build on its neutral position on natural governments policies, on national governments policies, full stop. Has anybody any suggested comments or suggested changes or observations in relation to that? Okay, I don't think I see any changes or anybody seeking the floor. Right then, we might move on to the next item. So we have an intervention there from Dr. Nomura. So the floor is yours again.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I overall support the decision to advance the G3W by mainstreaming them into existing programs in terms of the efficient use of limited WMO resources and the consistency among the existing programs. I think this resolution would give us an important lesson. Whenever we think of a new initiative, we should design it utilizing existing programs, avoiding overlaps and duplications. G3W should continue to be built on the World Weather Watch and the Global Atmosphere Watch as proposed by this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we move on to the intervention from Professor Endersby. You might outline your rationale, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, and thank you also to the Secretariat for these changes that have been accommodated. For those who are not at PAC, this reflects a point that I made at PAC, that in including the G3W into the wider programs of GORE, that those programs should not be adversely affected by absorbing the G3W activities, and specifically reflecting the budget decision that once G3W was set up, it should survive on extra budgetary funding. So my intervention here is to reflect that commitment more in the resolution itself, that the point now reads to advance the goals of the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch by mainstreaming them into existing programs, including the expanded World Weather Watch and the Global Atmosphere Watch programs as appropriate. And then the intervention is without adversely impacting the work plans of those programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. I do not need to read it out for you, as Penny has just done so. So has anybody any further suggested changes to this text, or any comments or observations or queries? Okay, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je me permets de m'exprimer ici au nom de Virginie Schwartz, qui nous rejoindra demain. En premier lieu, je voudrais demander au secrétariat s'il est possible d'afficher un tout petit peu plus large le texte qui est proposé. Deuxièmement, je me prie de m'excuser, je crois que mon panneau était caché tout à l'heure. Je voulais revenir sur le point « Reaffirming the WMO's role ». Je comprends tout à fait. Je remercie notre collègue japonais pour la proposition et le commentaire des États-Unis. Nous reconnaissons tout à fait la logique qui justifie ce paragraphe. Et je voulais proposer, tout en restant générique, d'ajouter le mot « environmental policies » au lieu de « climate change policies », parce qu'il me semble que ça resterait suffisamment générique, premièrement, et deuxièmement, que cela reflèterait assez logiquement l'ensemble des missions de l'OMM. Donc je m'excuse de revenir sur ce point qui était traité 2 minutes précédemment.
Thank you very much. That's perfectly all right. Your flag was probably hidden. So we will go back to, with your permission, back to the reaffirming paragraph. And if I understand, the proposed change to the text is to add in environmental ahead of policies, I think. So that would mean that we'd be referring to a neutral position on natural government's environmental policies. Okay, so I'll read the full sentence. Reaffirming WMO's role as coordinator of activities undertaken by members and as a provider of technical standards and guidance that build on its neutral position on national government's environmental policies. We have Ken Graham's advisor seeking the floor.
Thank you. Yes, that would be fine. We do think that that is broader and more general. We were also thinking of certain policies around health information. I mean, the prediction that could be beneficial to health policies, air quality, transportation, commerce. But for the interest of the paper and moving things along, environmental seems fine with us. Just wanted to put that on the record. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Courtney. Would anybody else like to comment on the new change from Virginie Schwartz's advisor? Okay, so we seem to be accepting that text. Thank you very much. Right then, we go back to decides. Penny Indresby kindly read out the text for us already. So has anybody any comments or suggested changes or queries in relation to the decides paragraph? Nope. Okay. Right then, so I might ask the COPS desk to scroll on to the next intervention, please, which is requests number 1. And that's the president of Regional Association 1, Fentonay. You might outline the rationale for that particular change, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. There is a lack of a station network in least developed countries and small islands, developing states. So strengthening the observation network for LDC in the SIDs where greenhouse gas observation stations are often in existence is very important. Therefore, resource mobilization, building environmental intervention, and give special attention for such kinds of countries is very important. So I think due to this, just to give more emphasis for those countries which is more affected by the greenhouse gas. That is what I suggest.
Thank you very much. That's very clear. So I will read out the text if that's okay. So request number 1, to continue efforts to mobilize extra budgetary resources to support the implementation of G3W objectives with special attention to middle and low income countries, including the least developed countries, LDCs, and the small island developing countries, SIDS, where greenhouse gas observing stations are often inexistent. Thank you very much. Has anybody any comments or suggested changes or queries in relation to that? Thank you. So Neera has pointed out that the I should be going to Ken Graham's advisor, which is entirely correct. Thank you, Neera. So the floor is open for Courtney.
Thank you, and we do appreciate that this puts 2 suggested texts in direct conflict with one another. But you know, in the interest of the conversation that we had at FENAC about the fact that we're going to have to go through a whole exercise of reprioritizing our priorities in the face of some financial challenges, we just think we should be realistic about what this executive council is really recommending Congress do. So, you know, noting that while there's been limited progress in this making this program, while there's been limited progress has been made in this program using other WMO programs and their resources, the lack of substantial extra budgetary resourcing and contributions to date from members is kind of indicative of where this priority may sit for many. So for these reasons, we don't support continuing this program as a standalone WMO program, but we do support integrating the activities that have contributed to a G3W, such as core atmospheric modeling functions with practical forecast applications, data sharing practices with a focus on data policies and formats to increase the amount of information available for modeling and establishment of requirements for observations in different domains. So it's kind of to the point of finding how we could integrate some of the core parts of atmospheric science of G3W into the existing programs, noting without having an impact or affecting how they exist today. But we're really suggesting we take out this whole paragraph. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's very clear. So the floor is open to the Executive Council in relation to your views in relation to these two texts that we have. We have a proposed text from Fentanyl and the request then, the opposing request then from Ken Graham's advisor to remove that text. So you might express your views, please, in relation to how we might proceed in relation to these particular texts, please. Sarah Jones.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is a challenge to have two very different views of how we should move forwards. And I think we are at a point in the development of the objectives that we have related to the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch, where we are in the process of integrating it in the operational programs. And I refer to research out as an operational program because it is a long-term program of the WMO. For these programs, we traditionally have used extra budgetary resources to support particular activities. So this request to mobilize extra budgetary resources is not something just specific to Global Greenhouse Gas Watch as a separate program, but is something that we will need to continue to do to make Global Atmosphere Watch successful, to make World Weather Watch with expanded components successful. So I do think we need some wording that recognizes that we need to continue working to mobilize extra budgetary resources to achieve these objectives. And as we transition into a program that's sort of objectives that are fully integrated in the existing programs, this need will continue. So at the moment, we're in the transitional phase, and I think if we can find some wording that recognizes that as part of this transition, we still need an effort to mobilize extra budgetary resources. And I think speaking as one of the members who has done their best to find these resources already and will continue to do so, we'd like some appreciation of that need in the text. I apologize for not having a concrete proposal of how we might formulate this.
Thank you very much. So it's perhaps still maintaining the point that extra budgetary resources may need to be required for supporting this activity, but it's also noting that we're in a transitionary phase. That's the suggestion, and we're looking for language that might support that. Is that a new flag from Ken Graham? Yeah, Courtney.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And what I think we were thinking was that absolutely, well, first it's hard, and it's been a long conversation at the WMO about whether we use extra budgetary resources if we are in fact supporting something considered core to WMO mandate. So that's a different discussion. And reflecting back to Congress, there wasn't unanimous support that this would be in the regular budget. Right. So even going back to the beginning, there was a long discussion about just how much regular budget we were willing to commit to G3W, and we decided let's give this a shot of 2 years, with the promise that extra budgetary resources were going to come in to fund the rest of what the price tag was for G3W at the time of the last Congress. So that not really bearing fruit, recognizing there's some really fundamental core things, as I think Dr. Jones was pointing out, to what G3W does. And some of them are like the atmospheric trace gases, a lot of the stuff around the data sharing and the monitoring. So perhaps the way we can walk through this now is that we can add a request to Secretary General to do the analysis that was requested of Dr. Jones and Professor Endersby in terms of and also the alternate to Andrew Johnson, around making sure that we fully understand the impacts of integrating the core pieces of G3W into the existing program. So that's a request to the Secretary General that I don't see reflected here, even though I think it was asked a few times. And then maybe we can note that, extra budgetary resource mobilization for the core components of GOT and those other items may be how we can find a sentence to make sure we continue that, but fundamentally don't support the effort of our organization to be mobilizing resources around the G3W as an entity when we've got so many other competing priorities that we're about to have to go into a reprioritization in October. So I think that's the big thing for us. So if we could make sure that we're capturing the need to do the analysis that's been asked around the impacts of integrating G3W into existing programs, if we want to make sure that we don't lose sight of needing to use extra budgetary resource mobilization for core research programs, not for G3W, we could look at maybe a sentence from Professor Jones, and then we can move into the reprioritization exercise. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Courtney. Okay, so somewhere within the EC and within the Secretariat, there's a potential sentence that outlines and articulates a request to the Secretary General to conduct an analysis in relation to the possible impacts associated with the integration of G3W into core programs, noting, of course, that this is a transitionary activity, and that we'll have to touch on somehow the wording around resources. So that's that intervention. Anyone else like to seek the floor? Penny, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And I'm not sure I have a fully mature sentence in my mind. If we are going to put in the request, which I support, to do the analysis of what can be achieved and any impact on the other programs into which it's being integrated, perhaps we could include in that the analysis of the remaining extra budgetary resources that would be required. Because in my recollection of Congress, the mandate we had was to set this up with a small amount of core budget, and then we had an explicit mandate to pursue extra budgetary resources. And I don't recall that being limited to the 2 years, but we haven't achieved a great deal. We have found some, and we're still trying. So that would give us a sense of what gap needs to be closed, and there would be the opportunity to bring that back to a further council. I think that might come up with a possibly acceptable way forward for all.
Okay, Thank you very much for that proposal. Penny? Right then, I don't see anybody else seeking the floor unless I'm missing it. I am again, sorry, Virginie Schwartz, advisor.
Merci beaucoup. Not preempting on the final writing. Sorry, sorry, I'm in the full debate. I forgot that I have to speak French. It's difficult to discuss in French of a sentence in English. Bon, donc je ne voudrais pas préempter la décision et la rédaction finale, mais je voudrais dire que je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la dernière proposition qui a été faite, premièrement. Et deuxièmement, je pense qu'il est important d'affirmer cette recherche, ce besoin de chercher des financements extra-budgétaires sans préempter le budget régulier. D'abord parce que cette activité est importante et a été décidée comme telle, et deuxièmement parce que le paragraphe tel qu'il était rédigé initialement mettait clairement l'accent sur les pays les moins développés et les sites, ce qui me paraît être parfaitement cohérent avec la logique actuelle que nous cherchons ici à l'OMM et d'une manière générale dans le système onusien. Peut-être faudrait-il accepter de parler à la fois de financement extra-budgétaire et de partenaires qui cofinancent. En tout cas, je suis complètement d'accord avec l'idée d'analyser les budgets disponibles et nécessaires. Et je comprends tout à fait que la discussion est très délicate parce qu'il ne faut pas non plus préempter sur des décisions qui seront prises au Congrès en octobre. Mais j'encourage en tout cas à ce qu'il y ait un paragraphe à ce sujet. Merci beaucoup.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that intervention. So I will bravely attempt to word what I think EC has collectively said. So we might kind of put the cursor on the page. Thank you. And feel free to, this is a straw man, feel free to edit, as I know you will. Okay, so requests the Secretary General to conduct an analysis of the impacts of integrating G3W into core programs taking into account extra budgetary implications. Full stop. And deleting the rest. You might hit return, so you might new line just so we can. I'm not proposing that the remainder of the text is a new request. It's just so that people can see the proposed request. So floor is open for those for refinements. Oh, sorry. Louise, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I think that formulation is starting to look really good. I would just propose the addition of one element perhaps to the end of that revised sentence that would say, and present this information as part of discussions for Extraordinary Congress in October.
Okay, and present this
information for the results of, sorry, or to be more specific, to present the results of the analysis to the Extraordinary Congress in October.
Full stop. Thank you.
Sorry to take.
Yeah, we have to clarify something.
Just a clarification. What we are looking now here is the resolution of Congress. If you scroll up a moment, this is World Meteorological Congress in its extraordinary session. So this sentence should not be included here because it's already the Congress in session. So perhaps either you put in the recommendation before in EC or find some other way.
Thank you very much. So this is a recommendation we're proposing, yeah. This here, yeah. Courtney.
Yes, thanks. We can always count on Stefano to find these for us. I think it does belong in, I mean, I do think it needs to be a request to Secretary General in the EC resolution so that this is done between now and October. Furthermore, then again, just getting ahead of ourselves in a Congress resolution, you know, maybe it's that we just shouldn't be presupposing that we're going to be continuing an effort such as G3W in its totality now ahead of that effort that's being done to look at prioritization. And so I would not feel comfortable putting in the Executive Council's recommendation for a Congress resolution to something that may not even come to be. It just doesn't make any sense. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we've unintentionally put what we're trying to do in the wrong place. So it should be up in the main part of the document, which is the EC resolution, rather than the recommended draft of what Congress should consider. So we might move that text, please, up to that part of the document, please. And we might scroll up to that part of the document so we can see it. Thank you. Thanks to Stefano for pointing that out. So we might place it under the noting with concern paragraph, please. Okay, so folks, so we'll just read out the text. So this is in the main EC decision. So I'll read it out again. Requests the Secretary General to conduct an analysis of the impacts of integrating G3W into core programs, taking into account extra budgetary implications, and present the results of the analysis to the Extraordinary Congress. So that would be CG brackets X brackets 2025 if we want to be, but that's in October. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Anybody else like to take the floor in relation to that particular item or that part of the document? Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice President, and for all the different contributions to get a good way forwards. I think my understanding now is that we will receive this analysis, and part of this analysis will be recognizing that the extra budgetary contributions play a large part in what we do. And that when we get to Congress, we have our decides, and we have the addition from Professor Endersby related to without adversely impacting the program. So what we've been talking about is part of that, the recognition that mobilizing, whether it's research programs, whether it's our own resources, is part of what we're going to decide is in there for me. So I think we've set it up in a good way now so that we can get more information and then move forward at Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that endorsement, Sarah. Pause there a second. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. You have to forgive us. We were just ensuring there was consistency between the recommendation to Congress and what we're deciding at Executive Council. And Co and Stefano have pointed out that we need to make a reference to the we need to ensure that what we're deciding today is consistent with the recommendation that we're going to be making to Congress. So the suggestion is that we take the text in the decides in the recommendation 3.2. So if you could scroll down to decides, please. And if you could copy that text only copy it, please. And if you could place it, if you go back up to the EC and before the new text in requests, if you could paste that decides in there, please. Okay, and now we're going to edit it. So you might change decides to notes, please. So if you could delete decides, please. Apologies. Sorry, apologies. We might delete to note again, please. So having accepted the recommendation from PAC to, and that's the edit. So we have made two changes to the EC resolution, and we've already edited the requests. I'm going to read out the second part, which is having accepted the recommendation from PAC to recommend the goals of the Global Greenhouse Gas Watch by mainstreaming them into existing programs, including the expanded World Weather Watch and the Global Atmospheric Watch program as appropriate without adversely impacting the work plans of these programs. I see Virginie Schwartz, advisor, still has the flag. Yep.
Thank you again. Je voudrais un petit point de compréhension, s'il vous plaît. En fonction de ce que vous venez de dire, je crois comprendre que justement, vous incluez les notions de convergence ou de cofinancement possible entre les différentes activités. Est-ce que c'est bien le cas? Si c'est le cas, c'est parfait. Si ce n'était pas le cas, j'aurais tendance à suggérer de rajouter dans un des paragraphes la notion d'analyser également les possibilités de cofinancement, éventuellement avec d'autres partenaires. Mais peut-être que c'est déjà bien inclus dans l'analyse telle que vous la proposez.
Thank you very much. Well, my interpretation of the text in requests is that the phrase extra budgetary implications refers to all budgetary non-core budget activities, including the source of funding that you're talking about. So that would be my interpretation. Okay. I hope that clarified the situation. Okay, so has anybody any suggested comments or edits or changes or any queries in relation to the having accepted paragraph and requests paragraph that have been added to the EC resolution? Nope. Nobody's in my blind spot. Right, so we might move on to back to the recommended resolution to Congress, and we might move to the next small change that has been suggested by Ken Graham. So I'll open the floor to Courtney to outline the rationale here, please. It's requests 2, I think.
Right. So as mentioned before, while we are looking at this as a standalone activity in terms of where it sits in the WMO and resourcing and such, and fully in support of the PAC recommendation and the move to have this integrated into the regular programs. There are some continuations under this program that should come out as standalone activities. We support many of the activities that contributed to the G3W, such as core atmospheric modeling functions with practical forecast applications, data sharing practices with a focus on data policy and data formats to increase the amount of information available for monitoring, and establishment of requirements for observations in different domains. So those are really important things to make sure continue on. Therefore, we want to make sure, and they also have many partners within the UN system, so we don't want to lose sight of some of the cooperation and coordination that must go on around things like atmospheric trace gases. So therefore, we made sort of that distinction in there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Has anybody any further suggested changes or questions or queries in relation to this particular text? I will read it out. To further strengthen collaboration and cooperation with relevant United Nations agencies and other international partners engaged in atmospheric trace gas monitoring and modeling activities, full stop. Has anybody any comments, observations, suggestions in relation to that text that is now modified? Nope, I don't see anybody. Right then, if I'm correct, that's the last intervention there. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So with your permission, I will move to declaring this draft recommendation 3.2/1 adopted. Courtney.
Yeah, so just to clarify, what are we doing with 1? Request the Secretary General 1. In this case,
Sorry, apologies. I didn't make that clear. 1 is deleted and that we have alternative text at this point. So we're deleting 1, Fentany, and we have an alternative text which is being expressed articulated in the main EC resolution. Okay, I'm seeing nodding. Thanks for that clarification. Right then. Okay, so again, I'm going to move to propose that we adopt the recommendation. Sorry, Penny.
You can breathe again, Owen, but 2 is now 1 because there's only 1 request in there.
No, that is true. That is true. So we've got requests 1, and it's not 2. That is true. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's important. Okay, so shall we declare draft recommendation 3.2/1 adopted? Okay, and we also have to declare document 3.2 adopted. Okay, that's that adopted. Right then, folks, we just have enough time to move on to item 3.3, and that's the cryosphere high-level ambitions item. And here we are dealing with document 3.3. Sorry, excuse me. Thank you. So we're dealing with document 3.3 titled Cryosphere High Level Ambitions. and we are going to be considering one resolution. So I'm going to hand over to Radhika Neetu, who is going to present the draft resolution 3.3 forward/1. And this is from document 2, which is a work in progress document. Over to you, Radhika.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be as short as possible. So I'm presenting on behalf of the co-chairs of the panel on polar and high mountain observations, research and services that have coordinated the consultations in preparation of this draft resolution. Next, please. So the rationale for this proposal comes from Resolution 6 of Congress 19 that outlined a series of priorities related to the cryosphere and cryosphere changes for the current financial period. And one of the notes in that resolution was related to the preparatory work that had started at the time for the 5th International Polar Year for 2032-33, and also noting the opportunities that this presents for the active engagement of WMO. So the resolution, you'll see in the resolution the background of previous engagements of WMO and some of the benefits delivered through that engagement. So the resolution today, the draft resolution, puts in front of the Executive Council to endorse WMO's engagement in organizing and holding the 5th International Polar Year through the various structures of WMO and with the engagement of members, as well as in coordination with the leading organizations. Also, the Executive Council would request FORS to coordinate and prepare recommendations for the WMO strategic plan that would include key recommendations related to IPY, but more broadly, and request to the Secretary General for arrangements and identification of resources to support these activities. There is also a series of calls on members on the contribution to IPY to the extent possible, and among those is considering hosting an IPY secretariat. Next, please. So the resolution has an annex which identifies priorities that resulted through the consultations conducted by FORS and aligned with Congress 19 priorities, and very much aligned with the existing programs and decisions of WMO. So there are 6 priorities that were identified through those consultations over the past year, covering monitoring, data sharing, and sharing of research results, the enhancement of space-based observations over polar regions, the innovative transfer of research to operations through WIPS, supporting IPY through the operational Arctic RCC and the developing Antarctic RCC network. Also, partnerships and collaboration between communities, as well as the linkages between physical and social sciences, and the sharing of good practices from this work. And you'll see in the resolution we have received, in the draft document, have received a number of suggestions for changes, and the number 6 is slightly modified from what is here on the slide. A 7th activity was recommended and shared with Council in draft 2, coming from Mr. Bayoni and Mr. Chen, on potential international collaboration regarding the preservation and analysis of ice information contained in ice cores from glaciers and ice sheets. Subsequently, in draft 2 work in progress, Ms. Siwi recommended the removal of this paragraph. And we will see in the draft document, there have been a number of changes that would relate to this item as well, and several others. May I say that we've established a record we got to work in progress for. And maybe if our colleagues would display that document, I can give a short summary of which changes and by whom, just because it's been quite a fast moving preparation of work in progress documents. So draft 2 was generated based on input from Mr. Bayone and Mr. Chen. The work in progress document with changes in yellow, highlighted in yellow, was based on Mr. Scullin as well. So the yellow changes are from Ms. Siwi, Mr. Scullin, and the changes in blue from Mr. Graham. So thank you, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you very much, Radhika, and congratulations on the record. We might hand over to Roar to present his views as the co-chair of FORS.
Thank you, Chair. And as you just said, my comments now will be in my capacity as co-chair of FORS. So we are now planning the 5th International Polar Year, IPY. WMO's engagement in the previous IPYs have brought significant benefits to the members of WMO, for example, through enhanced sharing of data in the polar regions. Therefore, FORS sees the contribution of WMO to the next IPY as an essential activity for WMO. At the same time, we are fully aware that WMO needs to be very focused in any engagement. The 6 suggested activities that have been developed by the FORS panel, the presidents of the technical commissions and the chair of the research board are well aligned with ongoing activities and within the WMO core mandate. In outlining these activities, we have deliberately not gone into much detail at this stage. There will be discussions with our partners in SCAR and IASC, as well as other national and international partners on the priorities of IPY. So based on this, we will have options to elaborate and go into detail at a later stage. Now, you will see that there are a number of suggestions in the work in progress document, as also explained by Radhika. In many ways, I think that's great. It shows that the members of EC are interested in the polar activities of WMO. And I acknowledge that there are some different lines of thoughts. We can see that the members also support WMO and FORS to have role in other cryosphere-related topics than those that are closely linked with the IPY. This is clearly understood, and these topics are relevant, especially in the high mountain regions. High mountains are covered by the mandate of FORS, and it is addressed, for example, through the ongoing International Year of Glaciers Preservation, which has a co-chair from FORS. However, this specific document focuses on the 5th IPY, and the content of the proposed point number 7 is somewhat more detailed than the 6 other topics, and it has a focus extending beyond the poles. The suggestion made by Cecile Siv, which we see in the work in progress, is wise, in my opinion, and I support this. This will allow FORS to evaluate the topics suggested in point 7 within the wider discussion about WMO's work related to the cryosphere, and submit recommendations for the WMO Strategic Plan 2028 to 2031. So my advice to the Executive Council would be to give FORCE, WMO and the members time to evaluate this for the next strategic plan while taking it out of this specific document. This approach will give us time to evaluate what WMO could do, noting as well that the next strategic period of WMO precedes the 5th International Polar Year. I'll stop here for now, Mr. Chair, I can come back to the other proposed changes if required as we go through the document. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments and your reflections and your suggestion to EC on how to proceed. Right then, the floor is open for any general comments or views or suggestions or interventions that people might have. Okay, I see the chair of the research board, Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to note that the research board supports the comments that were just made by Raw concerning the inclusion or the removal of that suggested inclusion of the ice cores and drilling programs as being both too specific in the context of the current planning for the International Polar Year, and also because it refers perhaps too directly to activities that are outside the polar regions. And there has been some discussion in the planning for the International Polar Year about the inclusion of other cryospheric regions, and that has been set aside as being beyond the scope of the International Polar Year. And then finally, to note that all three of the WMO sponsored and co-sponsored research programs are actively contributing to the planning of the polar years, both through WMO processes and also in partnership with other international organisations, including the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research and the International Arctic Science Committee. And the Research Board is maintaining a watch on all of these activities to ensure that they will be aligned with the goals of the WMO in that planning process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor is given to Luca Bione.
Thank you, Chair. Before I get to my specific comment about item 7.
Apologies. I'd given the floor to Luca. Apologies, Cecile. Maybe I wasn't clear. I might give the floor to Luca and then I can come to yourself. Apologies.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to emphasize the reasons beyond our proposal. And because we really consider that our proposal falls within the general considerations, namely in paragraph 4 and 5, where we can read the IPY5 aims to address urgent global challenges by advancing polar research focusing on the impacts of climate change in the Arctic and Antarctic, to produce actionable insight for mitigating and adapting the environmental changes, and WMO has been invited to play a role in IPY5. And engagement, now we are in paragraph 5, the engagement of WMO is in planning IPY5 as identified in Annex 1 to draft resolution will provide tangible benefits to members. So we deem that a long-lasting effort in strengthening cryosphere monitoring will need the benefit of the preservation of ice cores in the interest of young generation and moreover the future generations, those people who are not yet on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. And apologies, Cecile, the floor is yours now.
That's quite okay. Thanks, Chair. As I was saying, before I get to the specific comments, I just wanted to take a moment to commend the progress made by FORCE under the leadership of Rose Kaelin and Stephen Hunt International Polar Years are flagship events that help us better understand the dynamics of the Earth systems at the poles and to provide insights on the impacts of climate change. Polar regions are warming faster than other parts of the Earth. We know this from our experience with the Canadian Arctic, which is warming at 3 to 5 times the global rate. So WMO cannot afford not to contribute to IPY5, and WMO is in fact ideally positioned to do so. So I fully support the proposed resolution for WMO to actively engage in organizing IPY5. Canada is exploring options to support the planning process and the activities in line with the proposed high-level contributions. And I encourage members to also reflect on their possible contributions to this global effort. Now, with respect to the specific comment on item 7, I suggested removing the text proposed related to WMO contributions related to ice core drilling and research. In our view, the IPY5 should focus on the 2 poles, in line with long-standing and successful tradition for international polar years, which is already a large scope of work. We should also be cautious about adding new WMO activities while there is a review of WMO priorities, programs, and structures underway, and while the financial sustainability of the organization continues to be challenging. Having said that, I do acknowledge the importance of ice core science and data and agree that it would benefit from greater coordination as climate reconstructions from ice cores are important to the WMO community. I would suggest that the panel on polar and high mountain observations, research and services, or EC4s, provides inputs on aspects related to the cryosphere that are relevant to members and within the WMO mandate as part of the development of the next WMO strategic plan. And I don't think I need to say any more about the text that we put forward and that has gone through so many changes. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Cecile. Would anybody else like to seek the floor, or Louise? I'll go to Dr. Chen first. Thank you. Apologies.
好，谢谢主席。我们关注到啊，咱们在针对冰芯的保存，大家有比较好不同的一些意见。从我们的意见考虑呢，冰芯呢作为一个冰冻圈的重要的自然介质，蕴含了珍贵的气候信息，实际上对于理解地球气候变化具有不可替代的价值。实际上也是咱们高度关注的，我们更好的来通过国际纪念活动来反映地球变化的影响的一个很重要的一个因素。随着全球气候变暖，许多冰川和冰盖正面临退化甚至消失的风险。若不及时采取保护和采集措施，这些宝贵的科学资源可能会永久丧失。遵循国际治理原则，有助于冰芯保护和研究工作健康、有序、有效的发展，也促进全球气候科学的进步和全球气候治理。所以我们同意意大利的观点和意见，我们也在这里头第7条呢，我们也共同来补充了相关的内容。好，谢谢。
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Louise.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, Chair, please indulge me for a moment to note that in my first intervention on Dr. Johnson's behalf, I meant to convey his regrets for being unable to attend the EC session in person and pass on his best wishes to all members. Regarding this agenda item, Dr. Johnson strongly supports WMO's proposed roll through 4s on the 5th International Polar Year as a key element of WMO's action on Strategic Objective 1.5 and accordingly supports the adoption of the draft resolution. In particular, we highlight the important progress by WMO in the establishment of the Regional Climate Centre network in the Antarctic and Southern Ocean and welcome its inclusion as a potential area of focus by WMO in IPY5 as outlined in the annex. We expect that progress on this activity will be cross-cutting and contribute to the effective delivery of all IPY5 outcomes in particular strengthening observations and data collection, developing advanced modelling and forecasting capabilities for cryosphere-related hazards, and promoting international collaboration and data sharing. By way of an early example of the convening power of WMO and the collaboration of members in the establishment of the Antarctic RCC, we're pleased to note the very strong engagement of many members in taking on the distributed roles and responsibilities of the RCC, and know that these efforts will provide tangible outcomes to support our collective understanding of the predicted impacts of climate change in the Antarctic and how we can better coordinate national mitigative actions. With regards to the proposed amendments that have been submitted in the whips, we would also like to express our support for the proposed interventions by the co-chair of EC4s and Dr. Siwa to delete item 7 from the annex of the draft resolution. We also concur that WMO's high-level contributions to the 5th International Polar Year should be focused on WMO and its members' mandate on the cryosphere, and the original 6 proposed focused areas of activity in the annex had gone through considerable discussion and consultation across relevant bodies in WMO, and therefore we agree with the proposal by Dr. Scarlin that this activity would be better examined and considered as part of the 4's engagement on the WMO Strategic Plan 2028 to 2031. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Ken Graham's advisors, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you. On this particular topic, we just wanted to lend our support to the PR from Canada's suggestion of how to address the item of ice core in future EC4's planning. And I just want to associate myself with the comments made from the alternate to Andrew Johnson, and to the fact that this has gone through, and WMO's contributions to IPY have gone through numerous consultations among all of the relevant stakeholders and bodies. And I think that at this time, without really understanding WMO's role in this, albeit important topic, it doesn't make sense to add it at this time. And pointing out that, as the chair or co-chair of EC4's Roar Scallon pointed out, IPY is not till 2032. So should we decide that there's a role to be played in the future, we have opportunities to add it to future resolutions and make that contribution known to IPY. So we would support the language from Cecile. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Right then. Okay, once again, we have a we have a non-aligned, we have 2 non-aligned perspectives here. So I suppose we're going to try to put together some sort of text to try to resolve this, if possible, in the time available. Listening to the perspectives that have been expressed here, I think there's consensus that, and it's fully acknowledged by EC universally, that the ice core data is a important, irreplaceable, natural archive which must be preserved and is indispensable with respect to helping us derive insights into the polar system and its ongoing changes. That's a principle, I think, that nobody will object to. Also, that the activities that are referred to in item 7 would certainly benefit from greater coordination. So that's the core issue. It's down to whether it can be accommodated now, or is there a compelling need to do this now, or is there another avenue that we can take? The proposal is for FORS to address this important area, this critically important area, through the next strategic development phase, to ensure that, or with the objective of analysing the impacts of including this area of activity, or supporting this area of activity, or providing guidance in relation to this activity in advance of IPY5 in 2032. So that appears to be the pathway forward that I humbly have identified while listening to this EC, but is there anybody here that might help refine my thinking or even guide my thinking any further in relation to this? Sorry, Luca, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder whether there is an alternative proposed text to accommodate what has been said by the chair of force and supported by others.
Thank you, Luca. And Roar, the co-chair of force, has just raised his flag. So over to you, Roar.
Thank you, Chair. So I will try one proposal. On page 4 of the VIP, if you go up there, bit further down, there is an also requests. Let's see. There, also requests. You will see that it says currently reflecting the interest of WMO members on aspects related to the cryosphere within the mandate of WMO, including the WMO contribution to IPY5. My proposal, just to check if that will solve it, would be to say, including the WMO contribution to IPY and preservation of cryosphere, of critical cryosphere data, something like that.
So the text that's suggested after IPY5 is and including the preservation of
of cryosphere data.
Of cryosphere data. Thank you very much. So we have Professor Appenzeller seeking the floor. The floor is yours, Christoph.
Thank you, Chair. I just should test that we could say including the preservation of environmental cryosphere data. Or environmental data from the cryosphere. Yeah, that would be a good wording.
So the suggested change is environmental. So it's and including the preservation of environmental data from the cryosphere. And then delete the second data. Thank you. So if I understand correctly, the proposal is to remove number 7 from the list of priorities and for this to be the solution. Has anybody any comments or interventions in relation to that change? Courtney?
Thank you. Yes, seems good. Only I would remove the new language that was just proposed. So what's in gray between and cryosphere. And I would actually put it up so that it's clear that this is going to be part of the review and submitted recommendations of the new strategic plan. So it would go under so it would follow the first reference to cryosphere, the second line between cryosphere and within. So everything in gray, move up to the second line after, yes, right there. So that it's clear that that's part of the review of the plan or the review of the EC4's work, inclusion in the strategic plan. And again, noting that the IPY is about poles, the polar year. We're not sure that this would be the kind of work that would get accepted into the IPY as a contribution. So we don't lose sight of any of it.
Okay, so we're just discussing grammar here. So reflecting the interests of WMO members on aspects related to the cryosphere, comma, and get rid of the and. So, and then another comma after the cryosphere at the end of the gray section of text. So, yeah. Yeah, we have 15 minutes.
And maybe just to deal with the two includings, I wonder if it would work for that second including, so after the gray text, within the mandate of WMO, comma, as well as the WMO contribution to IP Wi-Fi.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm going to read this out. We are out of time with our interpreters. We have 5 minutes and that's it. So I'll read this text and see if it's acceptable to the Executive Council. Excuse me. So the suggested change here for this part of the document is also requests FORS to submit recommendations for the WMO Strategic Plan 2028 to 2031, reflecting the interests of WMO members on aspects related to the cryosphere, including the preservation of environmental data from the cryosphere within the mandate of WMO, as well as the WMO contribution to IPY5. Has any, oh, sorry, Luca.
That's fine for me.
Thank you very much. Right then, it sounds like that part of the text is accepted. In the last 5 minutes, I'm going to keep going. Can we go to the next suggested change, please? Okay, that's minor, isn't it? Okay, so we have a suggested change here in, excuse me, if you could scroll back up to the blue part that was, yep, sorry, in section 3. Which part are we in? Sorry, we're in, I didn't pay attention. Oh, we're in the annex, sorry. So it's annex number 3. So we've changed the word cryosphere to polar. Has anybody any objection to that edit? Nope. Moving on to the next edit, please. We have added in section 6, WMO infrastructure, service delivery and research objectives. Could you explain that, please? Could Ken Graham's advisors explain those edits, please?
Yep. Thanks. We're just recommending broadening the reference to service delivery of objectives here, not just limiting it to high mountain regions, especially since this paper is about the polar year. And then also we did make that suggestion, and then in further consultation with some members on the part about end users, we've gone further to suggest that we preceding end users, so it would be the engagement of knowledge holders, stakeholders, and end users.
So you have a further edit.
Yeah,
So
so
it's-
further editing our edits.
So engagement of knowledge holders, stakeholders.
And end users. Again, in the interest of keeping this as broad and inclusive of as many benefit and societal areas as possible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two suggested edits. The first is WMO infrastructure, service delivery and research objectives. And the second is to replace indigenous populations with knowledge holders, stakeholders and end users. Anybody, any comments, suggestions, queries in relation to those changes? I don't see any. We might move on. So we've got foster in, oh, that's number 7. And we're proposing that that is deleted and we've already accepted that. So is that the last?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll thank the interpreters for their forbearance yet again. Thank you very much. And you've already been very flexible during the day. That's really appreciated. Thank you very much. We'll close the meeting for today and we'll continue at this point tomorrow morning. And we start at 9 o'clock, I think, tomorrow morning. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Excellent.
Folks, just a reminder, the Budget Committee will be meeting right now in Obama.